Okay, it's 3 p.m. As the only board member in the room, I will call us to order. And I will also add a comment that an item was left off the agenda, which is selecting a chairman of the committee.
Yeah, I was wondering. Okay.
So we'll do that at the next meeting, and we'll have an informal discussion, moderating ourselves as best we can in the lieu of having a chairman. Our attorneys have advised us that we can take action within the limits of what the committee can do without a chairman. So without further ado, if there's anyone online that has any comments on that, please speak up.
Would you like me to take roll?
Yep. Jen, would you please take the roll?
Bob Russ,
Here.
Jim Moser,
Here.
Mike Galvin is absent, and Jeff Hill.
Present.
It looks like Mike's on the, he just joined us online.
Okay, so we have two, and they're just participating as public members right now.
Hello, Mike.
Hi, how's it going?
Okay. All right, we're good. We have a quorum.
Is it correct that we have to be here in person to be counted for the quorum? Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only time that you would not, where it would not work is if you told me previous to the meeting that they were gonna be out of town.
Yeah.
Then I would need to have your address to go on the agenda. And then you would have to post it.
Post it, right.
And allow
Yeah,
people.
That's what I remember.
Yes,
Okay.
and then you can participate remotely that way.
Okay.
Okay, so oral communications, any oral communications from the public, sir? Please step to the podium, and if you'll give us your name, we'd appreciate that.
How's it going? Brandon Kanatani with Aptum, the consultant for the recovery.
Just a second here. Let me turn my hearing aid up.
Could you say that again? I didn't.
Brandon Kanatani.
Kanatani, great.
We're the consultant for FEMA recovery.
Okay.
So what I wanted to do today, they left off the agenda, but Jen said I could present this, show you what we've been working on. We briefly mentioned in the board meeting in December, we were working on a dashboard to show like status on where each project was and finances, reimbursement, that type of thing. So I wanted to present and show you what we've got working. We're about 95% where we're at, and get some general feedback if something you'd like to see in addition for your committee, as well as the board. So give me 1 second, I'll shoot.
Okay, since you're here, are you ready to present that now?
Yes, sir.
Why don't we, unless there's objection, why don't we have him to his presentation and go forward with that first?
Is it okay since it's not on the agenda? Is this?
Yeah, it's part of oral communications.
It's oral communications. He's
all right.
It should be
this
pretty
point.
quick once you get it pulled up here.
a vendor providing input.
Okay. So everyone see, so let's see. This is the main page, the executive dashboard. So we're putting together where you can filter and break down each. I'll go through each one of the elements that we've got on here, and then you can let me know feedback, or if we do this now, or I can do it via email or.
I think email would be best, yeah.
Okay, so first off, we have like the general header information, as well as in this multiple selection box, we have all of the current disasters that you have in-house with FEMA recovery dollars. You can actually filter this and see just pinpoint one disaster, or you can see all collectively in each one of the other boxes. So if, for example, I'll select this 4301, it shows me right here, you can see there are 6 project worksheets in the obligated phase, FEMA phase. And additionally, you can see the cost versus expense over here in the far right box. And down at the bottom, we've selected some additional information that you may want to see going forward. But this is kind of, we compare multiple projects together. If you would like to see individual projects, you can actually right click on this PW right here, click drill down, project detail, and it goes into further detail of this individual project. So as you see, we've got the project name, which disaster is currently in, as well as the PW. this box right here is the project number according to grants portal, FEMA grants portal. So if you ever see something referenced in an email or something, you can go back and reference that number 2, the actual project, which are common name within the district. Here is the FEMA category, A through F. We've set this placeholder here for the project completion. So as we get this information from operations, we're going to go in and the completion percentage, so you know, okay, hey, this is project complete. Why don't we have our reimbursement, that type of thing. And the next we have the process step again, just so you can see it on the same page. You have to flip back and forth between dashboards. One of the main feedback we got from the board was they wanted to know the cost share percentages for each project. So we've got that here in this bottom left box. So you can see in the orange is the FEMA portion of the cost share that they're going to cover. That's the dollars and the percentage. The green is the San Lorenzo portion, and then the blue would be the Calaveras portion that they're going to cover. So it varies per project. So we have it on this particular project drill down, so you can see as it varies. The next box here we have the payment receipt tracker. This shows the cost share versus what you've been paid from Calaveras/FEMA towards that particular project.
Unfortunately, way too many of them look like that.
Yes, sir. Well, one good note we got the other day is another payment receipt from Calaveras, so we should be getting some money in here shortly.
Good.
Probably the next couple weeks. This next box, project cost for expense, shows your budget versus what you've spent, whether that's via contractor, force account, materials, labor, that type of thing. And then we actually get a breakdown in this bottom right-hand box, how that breaks down. So your blue portion is your contractor invoices, your purple, dark blue, navy color. Sorry, I'm not kind of colorblind, but that's your force account labor, which is in-house labor that's done the repairs. This would be your equipment cost in the other lighter purple box, and then any materials you might use for inventory or bought out from a vendor. Here's the orange, so you can kind of see where you're spending that money per project.
If you use if you could use the mouse to point, that would be helpful. Thanks. We can't see that screen from our view. Thanks so much.
No problem. So additionally, we have another view. We know that people don't always see things the same way. You can actually see this horizontal and landscape view, how that breaks down as well. So you can filter it by disasters, project worksheets. It's how far you want to drill down to it.
Is it Brendan?
Brandon, yes.
Brendan. Maybe if you wouldn't mind backing up, just got a quick question on how you're on what a couple things mean. The project costs that you were showing versus expense. Yeah, project cost versus expense. So is the project cost, is that budgeted and the expense is actually paid out or billed?
So yes, so the project cost will be the project budget.
Okay.
And the expense is what the invoice we collected towards that.
That's cumulative to date. It's not the total expense. That's
Okay.
So we've only had very small payment receipt. So the expense includes what the district has put in.
Yes, so the expenses with
So mostly it's been the district that's put in. Okay.
correct.
And so will that eventually be are we expecting that the budget amount will actually come to be, or will there be a variance then?
It could be a variance. You can have an overage. It depends on the project.
Okay.
It's better if it's under for sure.
Yeah.
Versus your budget, but
Okay.
so with small projects, according to FEMA, they develop a budget, and that's what they pay you in the small projects if you get it right. So when you go back and reconcile these, you kind of see what your plus and minus, and you can, when you're closing them out, you can say, okay, we spent a lot more on this project, but we didn't quite spend as much on this one. If the delta is good enough for you, it's okay. You can appeal them if you want. It opens all the rest of them to being adjusted to. So
Yeah. Okay. It's fairly common on these engineering-based projects that we get going and they find there's somebody else's utility underneath there that has to be moved, or there's
Right.
the the
field issue.
specifications showed there was an 8-inch pipe and there was actually a 2-inch pipe. And so there's a fair number of change orders that end up coming in as the project progresses.
Gotcha.
Yeah, or they may find additional damage, something like that, so.
Yeah.
And I know theoretically FEMA reimburses 75%. Is that over all of these projects? Is that kind of what this looks like, or is it?
Majority are 75%, some are 90-10.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the ones from the CZU fire, most of those are supposed to be at 90%. The rest of it's at 75.
Very good.
Other things like floods and stuff. But
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, can we zoom out and look at the cost share allocation for the whole portfolio of projects? Is that same summary chart available at that level?
Let me get this thing on my screen that's making it hard to see. All right. We don't have the cost share for every project on the main page, but if you'd like to see that, we can. This is kind of the first version of it, and we're open to feedback on what you want to see. But as far as seeing the percentage breakdown, you have to drill into the individual project.
I would
Gotcha.
kind of suggest that you give us or give the district access to this and let us play with it for a while. And then come back and say, well, you know, really, we need that number there, and really this ought to move over here.
Yes, certainly. So we're working on access. We granted some road keeping the district access.
Yep.
I'm gonna get your preferred email address as well, so we can get you access and into the dashboard and let you go into it and see. I know you get a little more familiar whether you want to see certain things, but like I said, I just want to get some eyes on originally, some initial feedback, and then we'll get you access as soon as I work with my IT department to figure that out. So
I think this looks very good, and it will make it much easier for the board to look at this and say, here's where we are. Because it's all been kind of a mystery for the last couple of years, and you know, individual project by project, but how does that all add up? And I think this will be a very good tool for us to use.
yeah, that's kind of our intent, to give some visibility on where you are on dollars, and where everything is at in the recovery phase too as well. Yes, sir.
So you have 6 projects listed, but there's only a very small portion of all the projects that be out there. Is this just a sampling now, and you'll be adding the other projects, or are these the only ones that are ready for this kind of treatment?
No, so if you look, I filtered it down. So
Oh,
we have a
okay.
table here. We can filter.
Oh,
it
I
down.
see.
That's
Great.
right, sir.
I see.
So now if you look at this middle portion, it shows
Right.
all the disasters and what phase they're in.
Got it. And in terms of the FEMA cost share, what stage, is this all committed funds? Or are we still in the process of getting FEMA approval for many of the projects?
Yes.
Right.
So it's a little speculative, is it, that FEMA will be providing these funds?
Yeah, so some of these dollars are subject to a little bit of change, but majority are pretty close from the original project formulation. So we came up with FEMA came up with giving the scope of work and the dollar figure, right? So that's what we're pulling from. This is what's in grant support on the FEMA system. So, if they get in the CRC phase of EHP, they decide they're not gonna cover a certain thing, then they'll come back to us and let us know.
But I think it might be helpful to have another column of the committed FEMA money.
Well, we do have the obligated.
Do you have
as well.
that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I think-
Obligated, yeah.
That's the obligated
Yes.
for FEMA?
So it's gonna be a blank if it's not obligated yet.
Okay,
So
okay.
if you notice the project cost versus the obligated dollars is different, that's where that's shown.
I see.
So you've actually only have $10 million committed.
Mhm.
Or obligated.
Got it.
Out of the possible 25 million projects we've.
So I'm sorry, I just had my hand up for a little bit. Maybe I'll just chime in here because I'm also confused about that. So the obligated FEMA funds are 10.5. The project cost is 25. Is that obligated amount expected to change with additional obligation of funds? Okay.
Yes, so if you look up in the status, you'll see that these 9 projects, as they move into the obligated phase, your project cost dollars will get closer to the obligated dollar amount.
I'm sorry, so I'm still not clear. So the, it looks like all the projects on this page have project cost and obligated equal. Those are equal numbers. Maybe let's just scroll down to find one that doesn't have them as equal numbers. Yeah. Okay, here we go. So yeah, so on one of the, so what's up with these, and how do we get those populated with dollars? Or do we expect the obligated amount to approach the project cost total? And yeah, if you could explain that for me, thank you.
Yeah, so the project cost is what FEMA's estimated these projects to cost. As they go through the FEMA process, so let's say this one right here, this $9 million, for example, we can drill down into it. You can see it's in the pending PDNG scope phase. So as that works through the FEMA process, they'll actually get to the obligation phase, and that dollar amount will show up in the obligated column. Does that make sense? So yeah,
Yep.
so we can't count it as obligated because it hasn't gone through the FEMA process yet.
Mhm.
So it's not completed and I guess obligated. So so we don't.
So we,
Yeah, we're not.
and
counting it.
is there any way to anticipate what the risk scenario is of it not being obligated?
Short answer, no, but once it's been formulated and is in the EHP review, for the most part, 90%, I guess you can count on it.
Okay.
Just
And
never
is-
100% sure, but yeah.
And when you drill down into the project detail, is there some display of what phase you're at in that process, like whether you're at that PHP phase you mentioned?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so if you've seen that project detail, the process step right here in the right side, in the middle, that's the current, according to Grants Portal, which is FEMA's system of record. That's the phase.
Okay,
As
great.
it gets updated, we'll move it through the processes
Mhm.
as it gets updated in Grants Portal. So we'll try to keep this as up to date as possible. I was explaining to Jim, we don't know the frequency because it's not very fast moving, but as far as the payment receipts and invoices, that type of thing, we can update as we get them from the finance department, but we'll check probably every couple weeks or sooner. But we will get a letter, an email from FEMA saying they've obligated it, so we'll know pretty quickly, and we can update it in this dashboard once it's obligated.
Kind of a related question to those that were just asked. If you were to do an expected value, given the 90-10 ratios and then the 75-25 ratios, so of the 25.4 million in total project costs, what do you ideally expect FEMA to provide? You know, when you do that weighted average.
You have it here on the FEMA cost share. So we're pulling, so it's a column FEMA cost share here.
So would you add those two columns then?
Yeah, so we're
Okay,
that's pulling the averages per project. So it's a 75 or 90. We're pulling that dollar figure and putting it in this column.
okay.
And then, but we're only pulling from the obligated amount. So we're not doing the speculative amount with the project cost. We're pulling that from the market. So it'd be $8 million.
So we're hoping to get another 8 on top of the 10.5.
No, the 8 is the portion of the 10.5. So this is would be the average percentage amount, if you want to say that. So this is what FEMA is going to pay, the 8 million. Of the 10 million.
Of the 10 million.
So 80%. So it's an average of the 75 and the 90. So it's about 80%.
So I guess, could I use that as that average of say 80% then applied to the full 25.4 million?
Probably pretty close. It'd probably be closer to 78-ish%.
Okay.
70, because
If you're willing to talk
projects-
round dollars, yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Your larger project's gonna be weighted more towards 75% cost share, so they're gonna skew that a little bit, but yeah,
Okay.
so
All right.
between 75 and 80%.
And so the obligated includes what the district is obligated? I thought that was just FEMA obligated, but that's obligated.
That's just FEMA.
That's just gonna get,
But that's 10.3, but then you said the cost share, what we're actually getting is 8 point.
yeah, so obligated is total project amount. So that's including your share and,
That's what I.
and then the FEMA cost share is
Got
the
it.
FEMA
Yeah,
portion.
right.
Yes. It's very confusing.
That is a little bit,
There's a whole class on this, but yes, it's,
okay.
So this will be extremely valuable in doing cash flow forecasting and things like that, because we've been really in the dark about just, when are we gonna get this money? When can we do the next project? How far do we go down the road on a project until we,
And in the meantime, it's being financed at 3 or 4%, right?
if it's being financed at all? I
Oh,
mean,
really?
we have some projects that we haven't even started because,
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
so, as far as money wise, when I was explaining to Garrett a little bit earlier, so. For the FEMA paid projects, these larger projects, either $1 million projects, that type of thing, we can ask for reimbursement as soon as we've. Got invoices from contractors.
Yes.
So it can be as frequent as you like, so
Mhm.
just keep that cash flow going. The toughest part is getting that first one approved, right? The first reimbursement. Once you get that, you know what to expect and what to provide.
Yep.
Provide them that they'll kind of speed up the process and they get used to, what you're providing and how to be.
Recording in progress.
Sorry.
Turn off
Is that from this here?
Yeah, let me just kill it.
Good.
No, I gotta get. Sorry, I thought, leave webinar. Sorry.
Yeah, so those larger projects, you start invoicing those and get reimbursement for those as often as you like, say maybe once a month, whatever that case may be. We wouldn't be out for complete project costs.
Mhm.
So you finish. So maybe that'll help.
And just for my reference, what's the typical amount of time from the first submission of a invoice to FEMA to the first approval? I mean, I'm guessing 6 or 12 months, but is it worse than that? Oh, okay.
No, because you're not gonna invoice for $8 million off that, because you don't have very many projects that large, the larger the invoice, the reimbursement, the longer it takes, but like I said, once you get that first one done with them, it's usually pretty quick, 30 to 60 days-ish.
Oh, that's not bad.
It may be sooner, depending on their workload, but
But that first one can take a while.
yeah, the first one's always the one, yes. Unfortunately, but.
Well, I think this looks really good. Work out how you're gonna give us access to it, and let's move on.
Jeff, just real quick before we do move on, I just wanted to check Mike Gavin's here on the Zoom with me and one of our new committee members. Thanks so much for volunteering for this duty. I just want to make sure you had the chance to ask a question if that was of interest to you.
Yeah, right now I'm just catching up. Power BI, it's a great data tool, so familiar with that. All this makes sense to me, catching up on a little bit of the financials and how it's broken down. So just gathering information as I go.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Brandon.
Okay, thank you very much.
And then we might want to see if there's any other oral com online that.
There isn't.
Nothing? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So the next item here is utility billing policy. And
And Heather is going to be presenting that for you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, committee. Heather Iapaletti. I am a financial consultant to the district, senior advisor with Regional Government Services. The staff recommendation for this item is to receive and discuss the report. And if the committee is so moved, to recommend to the board of directors adoption of the revised utility billing policy. A little bit of background. On June 17th, 21, the board adopted a resolution approving this policy. It provides the process for handling delinquent accounts and the collection policy process. On July 18th, the Board of Directors, after adopting a resolution approving delinquent water charges to be submitted to the county, requested that this policy come to this committee for review. On September 11th, the item was presented to the committee. One follow-up question that was asked was, are there any accounts that staff are unable to place on the property tax roll? And per staff only accounts where the district is unable to place the account on the property tax roll is the accounts where the property was sold. And in those cases, the account is closed and the former owners receive a final bill and eventually will go to collections if they don't pay the bill. On October 23rd of 24, this item was presented to the Budget and Finance Committee for follow-up discussion. Members of the committee requested staff return to the committee with recommendations for 2 possible changes. The first, decreasing the time between when a listing of delinquent accounts is determined. Currently, that is December 31st. And when the resulting listing is brought to the board to consider placing the amount on the property tax roll, which is in July. And then they also asked that essentially they would like to revise the delinquent criteria. Currently, accounts with a balance greater than 500 are sent delinquent notices and brought to the board to consider placing the amount on the property tax roll. The committee asked the staff to recommend an OR criteria. For example, a balance greater than 500 and or delinquent for more than 6 consecutive months. Based on the recommendation from the October 23rd meeting, staff is proposing the following 2 changes. Instead of accounts as of December 31st, staff would start the review of customers as of March 31st, possibly able to get additional customers that had gone delinquent in the additional 3 months, and then expand that criteria to all customers with a delinquent balance exceeding 500 or delinquent for more than 6 consecutive months. Again, you're trying to get maybe customers with a smaller balance where they're not getting to the 500, but that they're delinquent they're essentially stop paying their bill for 6 months worth. And that essentially concludes my report, and I'm available for questions.
Heather, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just for my reference, what percent of our customers fall into this category every year, would you say on average?
A very small percentage.
That's what I assume.
Yeah, I am not going to guess at a number. I don't know what that percentage is. I'd say there's maybe 20 to 30 customers a year go to the property tax roll.
And because most of them go to the property tax rolls, I'm assuming that eventually it's recovered. It might take years, right, before the property's sold.
Correct.
But it sounds like in essence, the equivalent bad debt write-off is minimal.
It's actually very, very small because you're getting it from the property tax. And
Right.
then if for some reason, like I mentioned earlier, those small number of cases where they have to go to collections, our write-off is that portion that essentially the collection agency takes. So the district has a very small write-off amount. In fact, I want to say last fiscal year, it was less than $100. And that's very small for an agency like this.
That's very small. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's very good. So my only comment is I support this, in the or though, the $500 or 6 months. It seems like we might want to have, if it's under $50, is it worth going through the process of putting it on the property taxes? I mean, it just seems like,
It's just, for us, it's a paperwork thing. It doesn't really cost us anything. They're putting together a list of names that are gonna go on the property tax list. It's not a very long list in the first place.
okay,
Adding a name or 2 is negligible.
And also, if a monthly bill is going to be more than $50,
Right.
So if you take
Yeah.
that, let's say the minimum bill is $50, okay,
Okay.
a month. If you take that times 6, you're at least up to 300.
Well, I guess I misunderstood the policy. I thought it was or 6 months that they were delinquent in any amount.
It is any amount, but it's consecutive. So
Oh.
that means they're not making a payment for 6 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they
They're
haven't
not,
paid
there's
for
no,
that for 6 months.
There's
they
no
have
payment.
chosen
Okay.
not to go on a payment
Well-
plan. So let's say their minimum bill each month, so
Got it.
50 times 6 would be 300.
Okay.
And if they're having problems, we'll work out a payment
Yeah.
plan with them.
Yeah.
So it isn't, I mean, these are people who've stopped paying and aren't responding,
Right. Got it.
basically.
Okay. I'm supportive.
Any comments from,
My only question
Right.
on this is this, does this require action by the board? And if so, why? This strikes me as kind of a de minimis issue that could be resolved by staff, but maybe there's a different reason that I'm not aware of.
This is a policy adopted by the board, and therefore the policy can only be amended by the board. And therefore, and it was board's request that I bring it to this committee. And therefore, if we are choosing to make a change to this policy, we have to take it back to the board for their approval.
Thank you. Is there a way that the board could delegate this to staff and have it no longer be a board policy?
Correct,
Sure.
but that would, yeah. Yes,
That
but
would-
then it would have to, that would have to be board's direction.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
the board, the
Great,
board
thank
would
you.
have to make a policy, modify the policy.
Yep.
Mike, do you have any questions, comments?
From what I gathered, it doesn't really burden the administrative state much to change this.
Oh.
So it sounds like it just may speed up the process and, get things off the books faster. So I support.
Okay,
Jeff, maybe it'd be good to tell the new folks sort of a little bit of the history of this. This policy was adopted because before what we were doing was doing shut off notices, putting notices on people's doors. And then they pay the bill and then we'd have to go out and,
service people would
Service
turn
people
off
go
their
out.
water, then turn it back on.
so this policy was adopted in order to short circuit all of that and not be turning people's water off.
Yeah.
Well,
If
and
I
then
may,
getting
if
the
I may expand
Yeah.
on that.
yeah,
I actually wrote down some history, in September 28th of 18, the state passed the Water Shutoff Protection Act. It's actually called SB 998. And that actually was the item that actually triggered the district to adopt this policy and to stop the shut off and door tags and things like that. All agencies in the state of California had to adopt something similar. And so this policy was in response to the Water Shutoff Protection Act, SB 998.
Mhm. Okay. So,
you want to move to recommend this to the board or?
yeah, I move that we recommend that this policy to the board for inclusion.
Public comment?
Any public, I don't see any public online, but if there are public out there, please comment. Please raise your hand and comment.
Nobody out there.
Nobody.
Nobody. We have no public comments. We have nobody watching us, as far as I can tell.
Mhm.
Or we need a second?
You can second it.
No, it's my motion.
Your motion, I second it.
Okay, all right. We can take a roll call vote so I can move
Quickly.
this to the board.
Yep.
All right, so Bob Russ,
Yes.
Jim Mosier,
Yes,
and Jeff Hill.
Yes.
All right, so that passes. That will be going to the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, so the next item is future agenda items. And Heather has worked out a list of things, and I'm going to have a couple of others that I want to add to that, so. Heather, do you want to go forward on that?
Yeah, sure. I'll give it a brief recommendation. what I've done here is, well, it's recommended that the Budget and Finance Committee review this agenda plan and topics and timeline the items that I have proposed here, as well as propose additional agenda topics for your consideration. And I have given a little bit of background here. Per the board director's 22 policy manual, the Budget and Finance Committee shall be responsible for the review of district finances, including rates, fees, charges, and other sources of revenue, budget and reserves, audit, investments, insurance, and other financial matters. By June 30th of 25, there are 3 fiscally related items that need to be received and approved by the board of directors. That includes the investment policy, the biennial budget, as well as a new requirement. AB 2561 requires presentation of staff vacancies to the board. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to propose a policy so that that gets done every year and we're following policy, and that the board approves that policy. And I'm proposing to bring that policy to this committee ahead of time. So that is essentially my presentation, and I am looking forward to hearing what the committee has as recommendations for items to add to my list. So concludes my presentation.
Brian? Any comments or thoughts?
Sure. I had a couple of questions. Thank you so much. Could you describe a little bit what the AB 2561 policy is?
I don't have the policy yet. That's I may. AB 2561 is brand new. And what it does is it requires an annual presentation around the budget before the annual budget is adopted, that essentially discloses the vacant positions and what the district is doing to fill those vacant positions. So it's about how it was created because there are so many vacant positions in local government right now. And so it's about transparency to the public about what the agencies are doing to fill those positions. And so it has been suggested that we create a policy. And again, I would like to get this committee's input on that policy.
Great, thank you. And the leak adjustment policy?
When a customer has a leak and they get their leak fixed, they would like to get an adjustment on their bill, and the district has a policy for those adjustments that happen on the bill. And it has been recommended by staff that they believe some changes need to be made to that policy. And that is what I'm proposing to bring to this committee in July.
Gotcha. If hypothetically, I thought that sounded like a great policy to delegate to staff and not have under board review any longer, how could that be incorporated into that agenda item as part of the revised policy?
Oh, definitely. It definitely could. Yeah, again, it's a policy that's adopted by the board, so it would have to be changed. So that delegation to staff, again, would be included in the policy.
Great.
But then adopted by the board.
Sure. Wonderful. Thanks. I think as this is just to the committee, but perhaps there's a threshold policies with financial implications of less than $25,000 or something like that, where the GM is regularly making decisions of that magnitude all the time without board authority. Maybe policies of that magnitude are smaller. We can just try to do that to clean up our inventory of board obligations.
I'm sure staff would love that idea.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And then my only other request is that it would be really nice to have a primer on our budget at a meeting prior to the review of the proposed budget, wherein we kind of get oriented to the budget and and start to know its parts and pieces. And that way, when we're reviewing the packet for the April 9th meeting, we are better informed as to what we're looking at.
I think that's a great idea. I've done that for other agencies before. I call it Budget 101. And so I would love to do something like that.
Thank you.
Excellent idea. Excellent idea. Okay, Jim?
So, I guess the issue I'd like to bring up is, it came up a couple of years ago as well, is now that we have so many capital projects and we're seeking grants and contracts from diverse, organizations and, government entities, and this may not apply to public agencies, but I ran a nonprofit and a for-profit projects where we settled on an overhead rate. And the district doesn't have an overhead rate. I'm not sure how this fits into the budget, but it seems to me one of the fallacies that we've been dealing with is the idea that our operating budget has been going up, 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 and up, but we're charging so much of the staff time that goes to capital projects as operating. So it makes it look like the operating budget is going up, but in fact, the staff is taking on a lot more obligations because they're doing the capital projects, but our capital budgets seem, as far as I can tell, the capital projects almost always just include the hard costs and not the labor costs. I think some engineering, I think that was shifted a couple of years ago, but for instance, the general manager is probably spending at least 20 to 30% of his time on capital projects, and yet that time is all being charged to operation. And it seems like it would be good to have an overhead calculation for some of the. I know FEMA doesn't pay, won't pay staff, but other funding sources may pay for some staff. But at least for internal purposes, it would be nice to know how much of our operational budget is actually going to capital. So I don't know how that fits in, but it's been an issue around some of the public discussion in the community, because there's been a lot of complaints about how operating costs have been going up so high. And yet I think the district needs to be able to provide some more accurate information about how operations has to go up in order to deal with the capital projects.
So I think that's definitely worthy of study. I don't know quite where it goes yet, but I think it's worthy of study. And
Heather, do you have any thoughts about that? I saw you shaking your head no. So
No, it's in 20 years. I have, let me give you a pinch of my background.
okay.
I have been with local government since 2003. 2 different agencies, full service governments with water, sewer, electric utility, police and fire. The issue that you just brought up, I have heard a lot about increased operational cost. The way this agency deals with their, I'm going to call it their direct labor, is, for instance, engineers actually do charge their time to projects, and we actually include that in the capitalized cost. So when you look at my monthly status report that goes to the board and you see project costs in there, it actually includes that engineering labor. It does not include. I've also done a lot of, since retiring in 21, I've also done some work with nonprofits. So I am very familiar with calculating an indirect overhead cost rate for federal grants. I've never seen an indirect cost rate applied to a local government in that way when it comes to capital projects. But I think the concept is worth discussing to determine what the best way to communicate to the public that increased operational cost. I'm not sure an overhead rate is the proper way to do it. But I think what you're trying to solve is definitely worth the conversation.
How
If that makes
how do you
sense.
estimate how much of the engineer's time is going to a capital project? Does
They
he have
actually
a-
put it on their timesheet. It is
Okay.
actually time that they put on their timesheet when they're working on a project. They actually document it on their timesheet. And
Could-
that information goes to accounting and it's recorded with a monthly journal entry.
So could that be used for the environmental director who's often working on capital projects and the general manager? Could be, would that be
It could, if it's direct, if the general manager is doing direct project work, yes, definitely. And I
Good.
believe the environmental manager did the same thing when it came to their timesheet as well.
Yeah, because that was just
How about
routine.
the field crews, the
Everybody, if they are working on direct capital projects, their time goes. Yeah.
currently?
It's not like, I won't say finance, again, I would say that's where that overhead rate comes in. But if there's direct work being done on those capital projects, it should be recorded on the timesheet and included in the monthly journal entry. I'm not talking about the overhead. I'm not talking about finance or that HR, that truly
Right.
is indirect cost, but that
Yeah.
direct cost should be recorded on the timesheet and therefore hit the project cost.
When I was on the Budget and Finance Committee 2 years ago, that wasn't happening. So if it is happening, that's great.
That
But
is happening.
was
That is
part
what's
of-
happening now.
Okay,
Great.
Other items?
Yes.
Just as a follow-up, Heather, I guess following up on Jim's question, do any of the other staff in the other departments, engineering sounds like, you know, they're used to keeping track of how they spend their time. But given $25 million worth of CapEx projects, do you think, does it make any sense at all to have other staff at least try to track? I mean, even on an indirect basis, if 25% of the finance department is keeping track of these CapEx and FEMA, you know, refunds and everything, that's a fair amount of, you know, of overhead, I guess, indirect expense. And even if it's just for our internal use, at least then we can tell our ratepayers how their money is being spent.
So for communication purposes, because it definitely would not be reimbursable by any grant.
Understood.
And there also is, for government, there is also no benefit to the agency to, I'd say, increase the cost of their capital either. So it definitely would be for communication purposes only. I can have a chat and come back to this board, excuse me, this committee. I can have a chat with staff to find out how much that they really do spend when it comes to grant. Like, for instance, right now you've got 2 people in the finance department. Normally you have 3 when there's a finance director. But for instance, the one accountant that I work with on a regular basis, she does all of the grant reimbursements, and then she does that monthly journal entry for capital projects. I'm curious truly how much of her time is really spent doing those items. And I'm thinking I'm going to use the word immaterial.
Right.
And so,
and that may be the case.
yeah. But I am happy to do the research, and I'm happy to bring this back as an agenda item for this committee to discuss further.
well, I would support that
Yeah,
if others do.
the question is how much,
I don't want you to
how
spend a
much,
lot of time.
how much use we can get out of that.
Right, because there's always the trade-off, right? Because it also means staff is spending more time tracking how they're spending their
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Right.
I always look at cost benefit factor here, you
Yeah,
know, how are we going to really be using it? So that's, let me find out
Yeah,
if
that
it
would be
is
efficient.
material.
Yeah, that would be efficient for you to just ask them. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, is this de minimis or is there actually, is this, if it's 10 or 20%, well, that might be worth,
Yeah.
minimally keeping track, you know?
I agree.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I'll add this to the agenda, planning sheet. And I'll do some research.
Okay, so I have 5 items that since this is a list of things you want to have on agendas, I have a list of 5 items. And I'm just going to read them off at this point. I don't think we need to have a whole lot of discussion on them, but one thing we've been discussing quite a bit of late is cash flow projections. And I'd like to have us standardize on having like a quarterly update to the cash flow projection. Bottom line being, okay, in the next 3 months, are we going to run out of cash? Secondly, this is particularly for you, Heather. You are on a consulting contract with RGS with us, and I'd like the review of that contract when it is coming due to be automatically on the agenda. The third is a little different. We have money that is in banks and some of it that's invested in various ways. I'd like to have us do an annual review of the performance, both in terms of financial performance and also in terms of services rendered and cooperativeness and all of that. A review of the banks, brokerages, any investment firms we use. I'd like to have this committee take a look at that once a year toward the end of the year and say, okay, well, we've been using this bank. How's it gone?
Okay.
I would like us also to take a look annually at both automation and security issues related to our financial processes and procedures. Take a look at whether there's any opportunity for anyone to get into our check processing system. Are there new technologies we could use to make things more efficient for finance, et cetera?
Okay.
And that's annually. And the last one ties back into the presentation we had earlier. I'd like quarterly probably to have a summary of FEMA reimbursement status on the agenda. I don't think much more frequently than quarterly will be terribly useful to us. But quarterly at least will give us a good touch point. So those are my 5 things. I don't know if they need a lot of discussion. This is, if nothing else, for Heather to kind of respond at a future meeting or something like that, but.
Yep.
Yeah, but these are agenda items, I'm not asking for big, huge reports and things, but I think we should address them.
Jeff, maybe an adder on your 5th item is, in addition to actual reimbursements, is making our best estimates, or Brandon making best estimates for projected FEMA, because that really feeds into the cash flow.
Yes.
Projecting up next quarter.
Right,
Yeah.
by quarter. Yeah.
Okay. Because, the board, the dashboard that you showed us was wonderful. And I personally will root through that in great detail, and I'm sure that Director Foltz will. I don't know about the other directors, but it would be nice to have a fairly concise financial summary for a public board meeting, and we should work out what that would be, but we're not going to put dashboard up on a public meeting and have people asking questions about all the details on individual projects. That would be somewhat counterproductive, I think. So.
Okay.
I agree with all of those, Jeff, although for the security and automation issues, it seems like that would be something we'd want to direct staff to do. I'm not sure it's something that I'd have any input into, so I'm not sure it needs to come to the committee.
It'd be nice for staff to take a look at it and come to the committee and say, this is what we looked at, this is what we found. Do you think we should make a change based on this?
Okay,
That's, I'm not asking for us to drive the details of
right.
that, but instead to look at the results of staff's taking the time to take a report and say, oh gee, there's a new piece of software that we should use, or there's a Scott may come to us and say, we found a hole in the internal electronic security system, sort of thing. So it would be useful to do that on a annual basis and make sure that we're not leaving something undone.
I would just add to that, probably best to separate those reports, clear distinction between the security and efficiencies.
Yeah.
They could probably get pretty lengthy.
Yep, thank you. Yes, yeah, I think you're right. I was just trying to kind of group them together here as a for purposes of getting through the meeting. Are there any other comments or requests for agenda items from the finance group? Any comments from the public? Anybody online? I don't see anyone online yet.
I just want to bring up one thing just from outsider perspective. Brian brought up 2 instances in which there's things that, we could kind of hand back over to staff on decision making that we could propose that are currently by the council. And if there's, I guess, more of those, maybe the staff can recommend, top 10 or, high pressing items in which they feel that could be handed back over for decision authority. I know some of those things can stack up and slow down. It seemed you guys were receptive to the 2 that he named from this meeting.
Okay. That seems like a valid thing to put in the minutes and discuss with the general manager and. Okay. Okay,
Is there-
any other,
I
Heather?
was just gonna say, is there any other suggestions? If there is not, what I'll do is I will come back next month with a revised agenda plan. And I will plug these items into that plan with proposed timing. I will say this, that other than hopefully a cash flow projection, that these items will probably end up going after June 1st or June 30th. Essentially, because I'll tell you something, this district does a biennial budget, so we are knee deep in that budget right now. And
You're probably
so
deeper than that.
that is what I'd like to focus on. So the other items will come after June 30th, if this committee is amenable to that plan. Is there anything else that you believe would be a high priority that I should try to squeeze in before June 30th? Other than possibly that cash flow projection, because I think that that's an important piece as part of actually the presentation of the budget. And so it'll actually be part of that presentation as well.
So having gone through the last biennial budget plan, I suspect you're much more deep than knee deep. You're probably neck deep. So
I'm getting there. So yeah, if the committee is amenable, everything but a cash flow projection update will come at, and the primer, the budget primer, that I'll make sure is actually at the next meeting. And we can go from there, if that's okay.
Maybe as a just a clarification on the budget primer, and thanks so much for leaning in on that. If you wouldn't mind using our existing budget as an example during that,
Yeah,
great.
I need you guys to understand it. So when I present your real budget, so I want that I'm going to call it a training, if I may, that training to flow straight into that next presentation of the budget. So without a doubt, I'll be using the stuff that you can expect to see in that budget. So definitely I'll give you the high level, but then I'll be diving into your own numbers just so you can see and have some really good perspective when that proposed budget comes forth.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. All right.
So Is there any other business to come before the committee today? Then unless there's objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you
Mike,
very much.
before we
Thanks,
go,
Heather.
Mike,
Thank
I'd like to be able to communicate with you. We're having a reception we'd like to invite you to, my friends at San Lorenzo Valley Water, and I wonder if you could give me your email, if you'd be comfortable doing that.
I can give it to you.
Oh, you can? Oh, I thought the district had the, okay, never mind.
Yeah, that would be great though. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you all for having me.
To all our volunteers, thanks so much for joining us. We're
Yes,
really
thank
grateful.
you very much. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Bye-bye.
great. Thanks, Jeff.